Around 1323 BC, a teenage king died. He was barely 18. Wide, dim tomb chamber, small golden sarcophagus, shaft of dusty light. Can we get an extreme close-up of that golden burial mask face there? Thank you. His body was buried in a hurry, in a tomb far too small for a pharaoh, and then forgotten for 3,000 years. When we finally found him, his body told a story nobody wanted to hear. A clubbed foot, a cleft palate, bones riddled with disease. Mummified. This boy king wasn't just unlucky. He was the end product of something his own family had been doing for generations. Something that was, very slowly, destroying them all. To understand how he ended up like this, you have to understand the rule his family lived by. And it starts with a question. Picture marrying your sister. Romantic, isn't it? Now picture that your parents were also brother and sister, and their parents, and theirs, going back more than a dozen generations. That isn't a family tree, it's a family creeper. In almost every society in human history, this was the ultimate taboo. In ancient Egypt's royal family, it was policy. The pharaohs didn't stumble into this. They chose it, deliberately, for 1,500 years. And to understand why, you have to see the world the way they did. To the Egyptians, the pharaoh wasn't a man who ruled like a god. He was a god, a living one. The blood in his veins was divine, passed down from the gods themselves. And if your blood is literally the blood of the gods, who is possibly good enough to marry you? Only someone with the same blood, aka a sister, a daughter. The family had to stay closed because letting an outsider in would mean diluting something they believed was sacred. They even had a mythological blueprint for it. The god Osiris married his sister Isis. If the gods did it, the god kings could too. So it began, and for a while it worked. Here's the thing about inbreeding. It doesn't punish you immediately. It waits. Everyone carries a few dangerous genes, broken instructions buried in our DNA. When you have children with someone unrelated, their healthy genes usually cover for your broken ones. The damage stays hidden. But when two people share a bloodline, they share the same broken genes. And with each generation of marrying in, those flaws stop hiding, and they start stacking. The early pharaohs got away with it, but the 18th dynasty, the most famous royal family in Egyptian history, the one that gave us Tutankhamun, pushed it further than anyone. You didn't think that was possible, did you? Enter a pharaoh we now simply call KV55, named after the tomb where his mummy was found. Well, not his mother, I mean his mummy, you know. Modern DNA testing suggests he was almost certainly Akhenaten, the so-called heretic king. And Akhenaten did something, even by Egyptian standards, was extreme. He married, get this, his own sister. In 2010, a team led by Egyptologist Zahi Hawass published DNA tests on the royal mummies in the Journal of the American Medical Association. And the results pointed to something staggering. According to the study, the mother of Tutankhamun and the father of Tutankhamun weren't just related. They were full-blown brother and sister. Now, not everyone agrees. Some researchers argue the pair were cousins, not siblings, and that generations of royal intermarriage just made their DNA look that close. But sit with what that alternative actually means. It's not a defense. It's the same disease. One more generation deep. Either way, the blood had been folding back on itself for a very, very long time, and Tutankhamun is where the bill came due. Now, here's where the story turns, because you'd assume the Egyptians were simply ignorant, that they had no idea what they were doing to themselves. They weren't ignorant. Egyptian medical texts, some of the oldest in the world, show a people obsessed with the body, with fertility, with childbirth. They documented miscarriages, deformities, sickly children in obsessive detail. They could see generation after generation that the royal children were frailer than everyone else's. And they kept going anyway, because to them, the bloodline mattered more than the body. A weak, sickly god was still a god. An outsider, no matter how healthy, was not. They were trading the health of their children for the purity of the throne. And they made that trade for 1,500 years. Which brings us back to the boy in the too small tomb. For decades, Tutankhamun was a mystery. The golden mask made him an icon. With the body inside, it was a puzzle. Why did such a powerful king die so young? Theories flew: murder, a chariot crash, a blow to the head. Then the science caught up. The DNA and CT scans revealed the truth, and it was quieter and sadder than any murder plot. Tutankhamun was a mess of inherited illness. He had a severe clubfoot, so severe he couldn't walk unaided. His tomb held more than 130 walking sticks and staves. For years, the comforting explanation was that these were ceremonial, symbols of the king's power, and some of them were, but several show real wear, the kind you only get from leaning on something to walk. Paired with that clubfoot, the picture gets hard to ignore. This wasn't a collector. This was a boy who needed a cane. He had a cleft palate, a curved spine, a bone disorder that was slowly killing the tissue in his foot. He likely suffered from malaria on top of it all. This was not a warrior king cut down in his prime. This was a frail, disabled teenager, propped up by a cane, whose own body was collapsing under the weight of his family's choices. And when he died at 18, he left no heir who survived. His tomb held the tiny mummified bodies of 2 stillborn daughters, his own children, the next generation of the sacred bloodline. Never even drew breath. Tutankhamun was the beginning of the end. Within a few years of his death, the 18th dynasty, the most powerful family Egypt had ever produced, was simply gone. No heirs, no divine bloodline left to sit on the throne. Power passed to a general, a man with no godly blood at all. The family that spent 15 centuries keeping their blood pure had purified themselves out of existence. They believed they were protecting something sacred. What they were actually doing was running a slow generational experiment, and every one of their children paid the price for the answer. Here's what stays with me about all of this. The pharaohs weren't stupid. They weren't cruel, exactly. They were trapped by an idea. The idea was that their blood made them more than human, and that single belief held tightly enough for long enough. Quietly dismantled the most powerful dynasty in the ancient world from the inside out. They could have opened the door, married an outsider, let new blood in. It would have cost them nothing but a story they told themselves about who they were. They chose the story, and a 3,000-year-old boy buried in a tomb too small with a cane at his side and 2 children who never lived is what that choice looks like. If you'd survive the ancient world about as well as I would, which is to say, not at all, then subscribe. There's a lot more history down here that they never taught you. And tell me in the comments which ancient dynasty should we dig up next.